Good morning, everybody. I've been really busy recently, which took a lot of time from both reading and YouTubing for me. First, I went to the beautiful city of Amsterdam with work, spent there for five days. Then I moved my daughter to college and helped her building up her household, her first household, building up furniture, stuff like that from IKEA. And we're also very busy planning the next year at my job, where a lot of changes happen and, well, they demanded a lot of extra meetings, stuff like that. And recently, and now in September, a lot of things in the book world have happened, and it's time to talk about new longlists, for example. For today, I want to take up the fiction long list for the National Book Award in the United States that came on Friday about 48 hours ago. Let's take a look at it. And while you do it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Back to the video. Number 1 on the list, Ghostroots by Pemi Aguda. I haven't heard of that book before, of that author either. Pemi Aguda is a Nigerian writer from the largest city in Nigeria, Lagos. She's a podcaster, she's an architect. She has an MFA from the University of Michigan, and Ghostroots is her first published short story collection. It was published by W. Norton on May 7 this year. The stories in Ghostroots play in her native city of Lagos, where the everyday business of living is charged with an air of supernatural aura. Lauren Groff, who's the chair of this year's National Book Award for Fiction, wrote about this book. The speculative conceits of these stories are elegantly balanced with a gorgeous fullness of human emotion, all the hunger and longing and fear and delight of being a human in the world. Well, if a chair writes that about you, you might end up on a long list. But I'm not a huge friend of literature with supernatural aspects and occurrences, so I will put this one aside a little bit, for a while at least. Number 2 is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. Kaveh Akbar was born in 1989 in the capital of Iran, in Tehran. He came to the United States when he was just 2 years old with his parents and grew up in several states. He grew up in New Jersey, in the swing states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and also in Indiana. He received a PhD in Florida at Florida State University in Tallahassee, a very famous university for several reasons. Akbar published 3 poetry collections. The first one was his debut, Portrait of the Alcoholic, in 2017. Martyr is his first novel, and it was published by Knopf in January 2024. This book is about a young man named Cyril Shams, who's a descendant of Iranian parents. His mother died in a plane was shut down over Tehran. His father worked in the Midwest. He was killing chickens in a chicken farm. Not very nice. He himself is an alcoholic. He's a poet. He's an addict, obsessed with the past and with martyrs. The book has been described as a search for the meaning of life, yet another attempt to define the meaning of life, where a son of Iranian immigrants embarks on a journey that leads him to a dying painter who spends her final days at Brooklyn Museum in New York City. And I have to say, I'm not on fire for this book either. Well, let's get to the next one. Maybe we find it here, the first really exciting book for me. The Most by Jessica Anthony. The Most is Jessica Anthony's 4th novel already. She debuted in 2009 with The Convalescent, which was a story of a man of Hungarian descent who sold meat out of a bus in suburban Virginia, and was also connected a lot to the history of Hungary. The Most now covers 8 hours on November the 3rd in 1957. When Sputnik 2 was launched into space with a dog named Laika, was launched into space by the Soviet Union. And here we have Kathleen Beckett, the wife of insurance salesman Virgil, death of a salesman, who once was a promising tennis talent and now is a stay-at-home mom. She unearths a red bathing suit and she descends into the family swimming pool in Newark and Delaware, yes, and she doesn't come out. This is a book about a seemingly idyllic mid-20th century marriage, about unspoken truths underneath. That sounds a little bit Interesting. 3 books in, but I do not say that I definitely want to read this, but it sounds interesting with such short time span covered, and I wonder why she took up, the author took up an historic day like the Sputnik thing for an everyday occurrence and for an American marriage, but that's interesting, isn't it? Number 4 is Catalina by Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. Like Kaveh Akbar, Karla Cornejo Villavicencio was born in 1989. He was born in Tehran, she in Ecuador. She lived in the United States as an undocumented immigrant and believes that she was the first person ever who graduated at Harvard University as an undocumented person. In 2020, she published her debut, the nonfiction and partly memoir book, The Undocumented Americans. She is currently working to get a PhD from Yale University, a bright mind. Nevertheless, a bright mind. Catalina is her first novel, and this is seemingly autobiographic because, well, it's not so uncommon for first authors, for debuts, right? The protagonist of this novel is an undocumented student at Harvard. She infiltrates the school's elite subcultures, internships, literary journals, posh parties, and secret societies, which she observes with the eye of an anthropologist and an interloper's skepticism. She's both fascinated and repulsed by what she sees. This is the first story that really piques my interests, and I put Catalina on my never to be finished TBR. One World published this 224-page novel in July. Number 5 is a book I already read, that you might have read, that many love, James by Percival Everett. Well, I've called this book the likely book of the year 2024. The story of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain is retold with a new protagonist. The slave Jim in Twain's novel becomes James, 135 years after Mark Twain created what Ernest Hemingway called the first real American novel. And Everett said that this is a nod to Mark Twain, among other things. Twain, whose real name was Samuel Clemens, was anti-slavery, but nevertheless, he was a child of his time. Everett makes the side character, Jim, a very smart young man who tries everything to save his wife and himself in an inhumane society that believes that it's legit to hold hundreds of thousands of black people as slaves in order to force them to work for them until they die. An incredibly good work of fiction and a book that deserves not one, not two, but many more awards. It's captivating, it's human, it's ironic and angry, and it's a great novel for the next decades at least. All Fours by Miranda July. Miranda July's second novel, All Fours, deals with an artist who wants to drive from Los Angeles to New York alone, leaving husband and child at home. But her planned trip turns out to be different. She quickly checks into a motel, stays there, and starts reinventing her life. All Fours tells the story of one woman's quest for a new kind of freedom. Part absurd entertainment, part tender reinvention of the sexual, romantic, and domestic life of a 45-year-old female artist. When I read about this book, I came to think of a song. I want to break free. I want to break free. I want to break free from your lies so self-satisfied I don't need you. I want to break free. Well, that's interesting. I like it. Check the third one on the list. James I already read and reviewed, and I put a link down below in the box where you are subscribing a little bit upwards of that box. Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. Rachel Kushner, she is one of my favorite authors. She portrays yet another interesting female character in her new novel, Sadie Smith, a seductive and cunning American woman who infiltrates an anarchist collective in France. Slower. A propulsive page-turner of glittering insights and dark humor. Creation Lake is a novel about a secret agent, a 34-year-old American woman of ruthless tactics, bold opinions, and clean beauty, who is sent to do dirty work in France. I gotta read this one. I gotta review this one. Wait until I get it. Number 8, My Friends by Hisham Matar. Pulitzer Prize winner. I started and, yes, I DNF'd My Friends. This is the story of two friends who both hail from Libya. Khaled, the I-narrator, and his friend Hosam Zawa are at the center of this book. Khaled heard Hosam read a short story about a man being eaten by a cat on the radio when he was a very young guy. After some years where the Arab Spring plays an important role, Khaled finally meets Hosam in a hotel and they become very good friends. This book is about a friendship, but this friendship not only sustains Khaled, but eventually forces him, as the Arab Spring finally erupts, to confront agonizing tensions between revolution and safety, between family and exile, and how to define his own sense of self against the ones closest to him. I DNF'd the book because I never really got immersed into it, and I felt not so much interest in the characters. But if you love it or like it, it's up to you, you know. Both James, Creation Lake, and My Friends are also longlisted for the Booker of 2024. And here comes one of the two last books on the list, and this is Your Dead by Sam Sachs, a book I've never heard about before. Your Dad is a novel about Ezra who lights themselves on fire, and while they die, their lives are flashing before their eyes. The book is told in lyric fragments that span both lifetimes and geography. Your Dad is a Jewish diasporic coming-of-age story that questions how our historical memory shapes our political and emotional present. I am not really into wanting to read this one. It sounds so sad, and it also sounds, I'm not into this. Number 10 of the last one on the long list is Rejection by Tony Tulathimutte. This is a novel written in stories which follows a cast of intricately linked characters as Rejection throws their lives and relationships into chaos. The 7 connected stories seamlessly transition between the personal crises of a complex ensemble and the comic tragedies of sex, relationships, identity, and the internet. Tony Tulathimutte, and I hope I pronounce your name right, Tony, won an O. Henry Award in 2008 for his story Scenes from the Life of the Only Girl in Watershield, Alaska. And like many writers I've stumbled upon in the last years, he went to the Iowa Writers' Workshop, which is America's oldest and one of the most well-known and renowned schools for writers in America. Well, folks, these are the 10 books I have seen nominated on the long list for the National Book Award. I'm interested in Catalina by Karla, Cornejo, Villavicencio. I'm interested in All Fours by Miranda July. Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. These 3 are my favorites. I read James. And I would also give the 2 more short fiction works, Rejection by Tony Tulathimutte and Ghostroots by Pemi Aguda, a chance if I could get to them without having to buy them, which I really doubt because I don't think these short story collections will end up in Sweden. Maybe on audio, I don't know. So these were the books. This was the long list. And I will also get to another long list very soon. This is the Scotiabank Giller Prize, or now it is called the Giller Prize. Only 10 books were nominated in Canada 1.5 weeks ago when I didn't have the time to do any videos because I was sort of building together IKEA furniture in another place here in Sweden. Thanks very much for watching the video. I hope to see you very soon, and bye!